You're 12 years old, maybe younger. Nobody's counting birthdays yet. Calendars are a few 100,000 years away. And you just ate the last piece of mammoth rib. The good piece. The one your mother had been saving since yesterday, wrapped in leaves like it was a state secret. She's walking back into the cave right now, and she's going to ask where it went. You have options. Option 1, tell the truth and get yelled at in a language that's mostly grunts, hand gestures, and the universal disappointed parent stare. Option 2, run and never come back, which seems extreme over a rib. Option 3, and this is the one that changes everything, you look her dead in the eye, and you point at your little brother. He's 3. He can't even talk yet. He doesn't stand a chance. You didn't just save yourself a scolding. You just did something that, as far as we can tell, almost no other species on Earth could reliably pull off. You took a piece of information only you possessed, the truth, and deliberately planted a false version of it inside someone else's mind, on purpose, for personal gain. Congratulations, you just told the first lie, and it might be one of the most important cognitive leaps in your entire species' history. Here's why that moment matters more than it sounds like it should. To lie convincingly, your brain needs something psychologists call theory of mind, the ability to understand that another person's beliefs can be different from reality and different from your own beliefs. You have to build a little model of what's inside someone else's head, figure out what they currently believe, and then deliberately feed that model something false. That is an enormous amount of computing power for a brain to spend on a rib bone. Most animals can react to what another creature does. A gazelle that sees a lion run reacts to the running. It doesn't need to wonder what the lion is thinking, but almost no animals can track what another creature believes, and fewer still can deliberately manipulate that belief. Psychologists David Premack and Guy Woodruff first proposed the theory of mind concept in the 1970s, studying exactly this gap between reacting to behavior and modeling belief. Your little pointing at your brother move required exactly this. Understanding that your mother didn't know the truth yet, and that you could control what she'd believe instead. We know this ability didn't just appear out of thin air one Tuesday, because we can still watch earlier, clumsier versions of it happening in the animal kingdom today. Primatologists have documented chimpanzees hiding food from higher-ranking troop members, only sneaking back to retrieve it once the coast is clear. Franz de Waal, one of the most well-known researchers in primate social behavior, documented specific cases of chimps suppressing outward signs of excitement around food precisely when a dominant member was watching, essentially a poker face. 4 million years before poker existed, ravens and corvids do something even sneakier. Researchers studying food-caching birds, notably work led by Nicola Clayton, found that ravens will pretend to bury food in one spot while dominant birds are watching, then secretly move it to the real hiding spot once alone. That's not instinct. That's an animal actively modeling what another bird believes and feeding it fiction. So if a bird can pull this off, it's a safe bet the capacity existed somewhere in our own ancestral line too, long before anyone was building tools, let alone lying about mammoth ribs. Here's the thing about blaming a 3-year-old. He has no alibi, but he also has no idea he needs one. While your mother is busy interrogating him, he is standing there, mid-accusation, calmly trying to put a beetle in his mouth. He is not stressed about the rib situation. He is not stressed about anything. He has the emotional range of a very small, very content rock. You, on the other hand, are doing an enormous amount of internal work to look casual. You've arranged your face into what you believe is a neutral, uninvolved expression, the Ice Age equivalent of whistling and looking at the ceiling, except there is no ceiling, there is just cave. And you are now staring very intensely at a wall for no visible reason. Your mother notices this. She always notices this. Mothers, it turns out, developed their own version of theory of mind roughly the same time you developed yours, and hers has had a few more years of practice. She doesn't call you out, though. Not yet. She simply files this away. The too still posture, the wall staring, the extremely specific way you suddenly needed to check on the fire. For future reference. Somewhere in her head, a mental folder labeled Things to Bring Up in 20 Years quietly opens for the first time. It will not be the last entry. Lying is expensive, cognitively speaking. Your brain has to simultaneously track 2 competing versions of reality, what actually happened, and what you're trying to make someone else believe instead. Holding both of those in your head at once consistently, without slipping up, takes real processing power. And evolution doesn't build expensive machinery for no reason at all. The leading explanation is something researchers Richard Byrne and Andrew Whiten named the Machiavellian intelligence hypothesis. The idea that primate brains, including ours, grew larger not primarily to solve problems like tool use or navigation, but to outmaneuver each other socially. As early hominin groups grew bigger and resources got scarcer, the individuals who could manipulate, mislead, or selectively share information had a real, measurable edge, an extra bite of food, an avoided punishment, a mate not shared with a rival. Evolution didn't care about fairness, it cared about what worked. And apparently, what worked included occasionally blaming your toddler brother for your own crimes. Here's where it gets even more interesting. This ability doesn't show up in humans all at once. Developmental psychologists have used something called the false belief test, most famously the Sally Ann test, to figure out exactly when children develop theory of mind. In the classic version, a child watches a doll named Sally hide a marble, then leave the room. Another doll, Ann, moves the marble somewhere else. When Sally comes back, researchers ask the child, "Where will Sally look for her marble?" Kids under about 4 almost universally say Sally will look in the new spot because they know it moved, so surely Sally does too. It's not until around age 4 that children reliably understand Sally still believes the marble is where she left it because Sally doesn't have the information they have. That's the exact moment a human brain becomes capable of a real, deliberate lie. Not just an accidental wrong guess, but genuinely modeling someone else's false belief and using it. Which means somewhere out there in the Ice Age, your prehistoric self probably wasn't lying about the rib bone until you hit roughly that same developmental milestone. Evolution built the hardware. Childhood development is just running the same install process it always has. Here's the part that reframes the entire story. The exact same cognitive machinery required to lie to your mother is the machinery required to cooperate with her. Theory of mind doesn't only let you deceive somebody, it's the identical tool that lets you understand what someone else needs without them saying it. Coordinate a hunt where everyone has a different job. Teach your little brother how to throw a spear by imagining what he doesn't yet know. Or comfort someone who's grieving by understanding a pain you're not personally feeling. You cannot have one without the other. The same evolutionary leap that produced your species' first lie also produced its first real trust, its first alliances, its first genuinely complex cooperation. Deception and connection are two outputs of the exact same piece of mental hardware. And that hardware is arguably one of the biggest reasons a bunch of hungry, mammoth rib-stealing hominins eventually went on to build agriculture, cities, and eventually courtroom dramas. Your brother, for the record, never did figure out what happened to that rib. He grew up mildly suspicious of you for reasons he could never quite articulate. 40 years later, at your mother's funeral, he'll mention it one last time, half joking. You will obviously deny it again. Some evolutionary advantages just don't expire. So the next time you tell a small lie, you're on your way. You already sent that email. You have no idea who ate the last slice. Remember that instinct isn't a personal character flaw. It's older than language, older than tools, quite possibly older than your own species. It's also somehow the same trait that let that same species learn to trust each other enough to build everything else.